Now, Angelique Clark, who's the founder, she's a pro-life activist and the founder of lifedress.org. Angelique, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
The last time we had you on, 2015, and that was when you were a student and you tried to form a pro-life group in your school. The school was against it. You sued, and a couple days later, they said, okay, you can have this group.
That's right, yes.
So what are your thoughts now? You have this draft decision, and is this what you've been waiting for?
This is definitely something that we've been working towards for a long time. In addition to working towards making abortion unthinkable, we do want to see abortion become illegal. Because ultimately, abortion is the greatest human rights injustice of our time. And so seeing the opportunity for Roe v. Wade to be overturned is definitely a victory.
How is it the greatest human rights violation of our time?
Well, when you look at what abortion truly is, when you look at where life begins, at fertilization, according to science, we can see that every abortion that takes place is taking a life. So because of that, we can see that there's over 2,000 abortions every single day just in the United States. So because of that number, because of the reality of abortion, I see that this is the greatest human rights injustice.
What about abortion in the case of rape or incest?
So those are also both horrible situations that a woman goes through. And we need to be able to treat those women with compassion when we come across those instances. Ultimately, though, we do see that life begins at fertilization. So
some people disagree with that.
We know that is undisputed science according to, we know how life is formed, the beginning of life, sperm meets egg, new human being. But to answer your question about rape and incest, like I said, those are very horrible situations that a woman goes through. However, we know that our value doesn't come from how we're conceived. So whether we're conceived through a horrible crime or whether we're conceived in a peaceful, happy family, we shouldn't determine someone's value based on how they're conceived, because a person doesn't get to choose that.
Yeah, you have an organization now. This is what you do full-time, basically. You're an activist, a pro-life activist.
Yes.
And you have lifedress.org. What is that?
So LifeDress is a hand-painted pro-life apparel brand that I started a few years ago. The mission behind LifeDress is to start conversations with what we wear about abortion. So ultimately, the goal is to change culture about abortion, and that is a mission across the world. So starting conversations with people, meeting them where they are on the issue, hearing their stories, and sharing our own stories.
Is that a nonprofit?
Yes, it is a nonprofit organization. All the money goes back to continuing the mission, traveling, speaking, training young people to continue their movements wherever they are. Again,
our number is 702-258-3552, 702-258-3552. I'm talking to Angelique Clark. She's the founder of lifedress.org, and she's a pro-life activist, and she has been since high school. You were also the president of a UNLV group, Rebels for Life. What was it like leading a group with pro-life beliefs at UNLV?
It was very interesting. We had a lot of backlash for having the club. There was quite a few instances where we would table on campus and people would push over our materials. I attended a Bernie Sanders rally once with pro-life signs and had a girl verbally assault me. So there was quite a lot of pushback having the club. But ultimately, it was a great opportunity to share the pro-life message to young people on campus.
Do you think that experience strengthened, like in some way, your beliefs?
Definitely.
How so?
I think that anytime I see backlash, anytime that I'm given some kind of hate for being pro-life, I kind of realize that the people who hate you the most for standing against abortion are probably the ones who are hurting the most. And so that just gives me an opportunity to have empathy, to learn more, and to reach people in a more effective way.
And Heather from Las Vegas, welcome to the program.
Oh, hi. Are you talking to me?
I am. Go ahead, Heather.
Sorry. Well, I guess I have lots of questions. My first question is, if you believe that life begins at fertilization, then what do we do with IVF patients? For example, my husband and I are going through IVF. And so what happens is they take my egg and his sperm and they fertilize it in a little petri dish. And then they implant the best ones hopefully into me. And hopefully I become pregnant. So I have a couple of questions. If the implantation is unsuccessful, am I a murderer? If we have eggs that are not viable and we decide to not freeze them, am I a murderer? If we have eggs that we decide to freeze, does that make me guilty of assault and battery?
That's a very good question.
Serious question.
You're talking about cells in a petri dish, and I want to say, and Angelique Clark was just saying, those cells in a petri dish are life, but if you go to try to get in vitro fertilization and it's not viable, they toss them. Should those doctors be penalized for that if abortion becomes illegal?
Well, I definitely see IVF as creating children as a commodity because you're really just creating multitudes of human life and letting them sit there. There's actually someone who was...
Wait a minute. People are doing that, and I know a lot of people who've gone through this.
Mm-hmm.
They would bristle at the thought that it's a commodity. They're doing this with a very serious intent to have a child because they can't do it in any other way. So saying it's a commodity, I know they would disagree with that. I'm not sure where that belief comes from you, but I just want to put that out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely understand where they're coming from. When we face infertility, it's a very difficult thing. So when people choose IVF, I understand that that's not where they're coming from. I'm speaking from the place of a larger societal issue with abortion included, to see creating human life and ending human life as this, economical process where when something's inconvenient or something's too convenient, we can, in people's lives, we can create human lives, and we can pick and choose. As she said, we can choose the one that is most viable. We can choose the one that we like the best. We can pick and choose, I want a girl, I want a boy. We can discriminate against human beings when we create human beings.
Do you think they should not allow IVF then?
I don't think that IVF is ethical in terms of the amount of human lives that are destroyed haphazardly.
Diane from Henderson, who is pro-life, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. I just want to commend your station for having a really good, healthy discussion, both sides on this, because I've listened to one side for so long, and I just feel that I think the judges in doing the Supreme Court decision is trying to maybe go back on a wrong path made in the past, where this is not a religious thing, it's a integrity of human life thing, where, there's separate DNA at the 5th week. That's not part of the mother's body. It's a separate entity. And I don't think there's been any studies done by anybody who knows when the spirit really does go into the fetus. I don't know it. I don't know if you know it, but until we know it, I'd rather err on the side that's protecting human life and a human being. On another station, I heard a woman come on that she was an aborted fetus, and a nurse took her home, and she was a human being now. I think at the least that abortion needs to be brought back a lot to at least 4 weeks or so, where we don't have to do away with human life to make life easier for other people. And I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty. Before what causes this is sexual activity, and I think there needs to be more of a responsibility on that act. If someone isn't having sex for making a human being, then there needs to be responsibility there. And I'm not talking about rape victims or things like that, but I think there are a lot of abortions done when it is convenient for one of the parents, but maybe not enough effort or responsibility was made at the time.
Diane, let me ask you this. So people are going to have sex. It doesn't matter what the government says, and at very early ages. And I don't know if you're a parent, but if you were, you know about the hormones, and you were a young person yourself, and not everybody's going to think about contraception, but do you think contraception should be banned? And that is what a lot of politicians are considering right now.
To be totally honest, I would love to see a strengthening of the family, the family values and all, but parents are working. There's a lot of different things. No, I think if it does help, I think that would be better than killing a fetus.
I think it's Stephanie from Las Vegas. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, go ahead, Stephanie.
I was calling. I know that statistically, women that are of color or minorities do not get the same kind of health care or health treatment that Caucasian people get. And I know that statistically, they are usually of a higher birthing rate than white women with a good education. And so we want Black women to be worth having no choice, or not even just Black women, just women of color having no choice of having an abortion or having an option of what to do with their body, but yet they can't get the same kind of health care. That's insane to me. I can't imagine a country where we're not prioritizing the rights of people of color and we're not trying to give them better health care and then telling them what they have to do with their bodies. We're not already giving them the right kind of care as is.
Yeah, I want to turn that to Angelique Clark. She's a pro-life activist. Angelique, I asked that question of Melissa Clement earlier. Do you favor higher taxes in order for the government to provide more services to single mothers?
Yes, I think we should reallocate the money that goes to Planned Parenthood to actual resources to help women.
Keep Planned Parenthood, but I'm saying raise higher taxes, because the issue, it's still going to remain legal in several states. Planned Parenthood will probably be a necessity, but in the same argument you're going to get that people have against Planned Parenthood will now come up against those who say you want higher taxes for people to have children, single mothers to have children. So let's say both sides. I'm talking about raising taxes in the issue to provide more support, because it is very expensive to raise a child.
Right. Well, I'm saying that I think there's already enough tax dollars going out to abortion that can be reallocated to services that actually help women. In fact, there's 4 times more federally qualified healthcare centers in the United States than Planned Parenthoods that are already have tax dollars helping women who need it, who are facing unplanned pregnancy and are looking for options beyond abortion. And as she said, she mentioned that, women of color are facing this issue more than Caucasian women, as she said. And I would like to point out that actually Planned Parenthood, they actually have more clinics in minority neighborhoods than any other neighborhoods. So I think, if anything, the issue is being targeted on minorities, if anything else.
We had a lively discussion on yesterday's show about abortion rights and the potential reversal of Roe v. Wade. And we really want to thank you for all your calls, your emails, and comments. We couldn't get to all of them, so we're continuing that conversation today. And in Nevada, it has been a busy week for the Wild West Access Fund. This is an abortion advocacy group, and they've received a record number and amount of donations. Caitlin Caruso is a board member of the fund. Caitlin, welcome back to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Really quickly, what is the Wild West Access Fund?
Oh, what aren't we? We are a practical support organization that serves people seeking abortion care in Nevada, that serves Nevadans seeking abortion care that otherwise would not be able to afford it. So we provide funds, we provide practical support, all to make sure that Nevadans access the care, the life-saving care that they need.
Now, you say Nevadans. It's not just Nevadans.
It's not just Nevadans, not anymore. Ever since we've seen SB 8, this abortion ban, go into effect in Texas, we've been seeing travelers come from all over the place, from Texas, Mississippi, Utah, Arizona. So we are also supporting people who are seeking abortion care in Nevada, and we're working with abortion funds in those states to do so.
Would you say a majority are coming from Texas right now?
Yes, we're absolutely seeing an influx from Texas in particular.
SB 8, by the way, in Texas, bans abortions, I believe, after 6 weeks.
Yes.
And they also create a bounty system. If somebody knows of somebody else who has an abortion after 6 weeks, they can sue that person. And if they win a lawsuit against that person will be paid $10,000 or can seek $10,000 from that person. Pretty unbelievable.
Absolutely. The state is deputizing people to enforce their egregious abortion bans, and it is appalling to see this essentially private security force being created by the state and funded by the state.
So how many people have you helped so far since you formed about June of last year?
We've helped around 200 people, which I would say is pretty amazing for a brand new baby abortion fund, only 1 year in.
Now, there is a story behind the founding of your group, Wild West Access Fund. Your founder posted her aunt's abortion story on Instagram. Talk about that, how the nonprofit grew from social media.
Absolutely. I mean, our co-founders, Carla and Maureen, are incredible and just amazing young people who saw the need for an abortion fund here in Nevada and decided to fit that need, to meet that need. We started on social media. We grew on social media. We've seen most of our support come from Instagram and Twitter. We have a large volunteer base that's grown from our social presence. And we've really just had an immense amount of luck in the outpouring of love and support we've seen from Nevadans, which, of course, Nevadans are good and great.
Now, you're all unpaid volunteers.
All unpaid. We are all volunteer run, volunteer based. All of the donations we receive go directly to our callers.
And we were talking a little bit earlier about this. I want to get to some of the costs. You say if people are coming here from out of state, the room and board is no less than $300. The flights cost, estimate around $300, and then there's also childcare that you pay for.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a variety of different needs that our callers have and a variety of different circumstances, and we try to meet their needs to the best of our ability. And that can look like childcare, lodging, transportation, Ubers. And we're going to see this need, this travel and transport need grow immensely following the Roe decision becoming finalized.
So after you heard the leaked Supreme Court decision, were you surprised? What was your reaction?
I was not surprised at all, unfortunately. We've seen this coming for the last several years. It's part of why I got into the work that I did several years ago, doing work specifically around medication abortion access so as to get the care people need in the hands of those who need it most. So it wasn't a surprise to me. I'd expected this was coming as soon as we saw that we lost the courts. I just figured it was a matter of time, not a matter of if, but a matter of when.
And again, I'm talking to Caitlin Caruso. She's a board member of a new organization. It's called the Wild West Access Fund of Nevada. It's volunteer run. It's a nonprofit set up last summer to help eliminate financial barriers to abortion care. And they've so far helped about 200 women. Many of those now are coming from out of state, and mostly right now from Texas, but they expect that to grow, especially if the leaked decision by the Supreme Court is affirmed in June. Caitlin Caruso, you said your abortion fund, had a record week of donations. Could you talk about how much more money came in or the percent increase?
Absolutely. So we've seen an influx of donations since the leak. Our communities always show up to support one another, and that's exactly what our fund is about, providing financial and logistical support and folks getting the abortion care that they need. However, just like every other healthcare service, abortion is incredibly expensive, and even with the influx of donations we've seen this week, it's still not enough to meet the need we expect we're going to see in the coming months. Abortion is expensive and out of reach for far too many people, which is why we need folks to do more than just make a one-time donation if they're able, but to become monthly sustaining donors so that our fund can continue to do this incredible work throughout the months and years to come.
Sounds a familiar language to those of us who do Pledge Week here. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there is a profile of the type of people who are donating. Like, where are you getting your funds from? Can you talk about that? Do you know?
I mean, we see a lot of support from the community, from the progressive community, from young people, from elderly folk who, fought for this themselves decades ago. So the support really varies, but we have seen that Nevadans are showing up for each other and they care about this issue. And we saw that in the 1990s as well, that Nevadans, in fact, care deeply about abortion access. And that shows in the donations we've received.
So the clients, how do they find you? Is it through your website, social media, referrals? How is that happening?
A little bit of all of the above. We do a lot of outreach. We table at different resource fairs. We've done club nights. I'll go out to like queer club nights and table and share information about the abortion fund. But I feel like a lot of the places that folks are finding us from is in fact social media. Social media is, a great beacon for reproductive aged folk. Us young folk, we do love a good Instagram post. So yeah, we've been seeing a lot of folks come in from a wide variety of places, but definitely social as well.
And again, I'm with Caitlin Caruso. She's a board member of the Wild West Access Fund of Nevada, which provides funding for those who can't afford abortion care. And Caitlin, I got a question from Anonymous in Henderson, who says she wants to know, or he or she, how do you feel about the death penalty?
About the death penalty.
I think they're making the equivalency here that if you support abortion, then how do you feel about the death penalty? Is there religious involvement in that? Is there, if you're a liberal and you don't support the death penalty, then how can you support abortion? That's kind of the question.
I see. So I personally do not support the death penalty, but I absolutely support the right to abortion care. And I think that those two things are very different. Abortion care is about the fundamental right to bodily autonomy and the fundamental right to accessing the life-saving care that folks are in need of. Abortion is an essential healthcare service. The World Health Organization declared it as such in March 2020. And we know that abortion is really, really life-sustaining for people that are in need of this care. We've seen that abortion can improve the quality of life of families, in particular families who struggle the most. So I don't see any kind of contradiction between those two beliefs myself, because I ultimately am fighting for a better quality of life for those most impacted and those most marginalized. And abortion care is an incredibly critical component of that work.
Now, you grew up in Las Vegas. You've been involved in politics in D.C. You've been on this program before, even I believe when you were in high school.
Yes.
You were in high school. So you've been active for many, many years, especially in politics. And there are several candidates and current politicians now calling for a limit on birth control access. Several are very clear as well on abortion, like Adam Laxalt, the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate. Are people who donate to your organization asking about that, or what your group can do in that regard, in regard to the elections that are coming this fall?
I mean, our work remains the same no matter who is in a position of power, no matter what the courts say. Our work will remain the same. We are going to continue funding abortions for those who need it, and we're going to continue doing the work to ensure the most marginalized have access to the care that they need. So whether or not a nationwide ban goes into place or statewide bans go into place or emergency contraception is severely limited, we're still going to be here doing everything we can to ensure life-saving health care for Nevadans and those who travel to Nevada seeking this care.
We just heard the story of protesters, or an anti-choice group's office in Wisconsin, for instance, was bombed. At the same time, for many, many years, anti-abortionists protested outside of medical clinics. In 2015, 3 people in a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado were murdered. And since 1977, there have been 17 murders, 42 bombings, 186 arsons targeted at abortion clinics and providers. What are your thoughts on this reversal, the targeting of anti-abortionists?
Absolutely. So the collective that is claiming responsibility for this Wisconsin bombing of this anti-abortion center actually released a statement where they say this is not a declaration of war. War has been upon us for decades. So really, I see this as a militant resurgence, a militant fighting back against the powers that have done this to us for decades. We've seen abortion providers be assassinated. We've seen abortion providers be stalked and harassed at their homes and threatened with death threats. And we've seen clinics like in Tennessee, a Planned Parenthood was just burned down to the ground a couple months ago. This is nothing new. They've been waging this war on abortion rights advocates for decades. So I'm unsurprised to see that there are folks within the movement who have said enough's enough. We're going to dish out some of what you've been giving. I'm unsurprised.
But do you support it?
I mean, I think that the work that we must be focusing on right now is funding abortion care for those who need it most. I think that's where we can channel our energy, and where it's the most productive is really ensuring those who need care get it and are not, forced to interact with clinic protesters or forced to interact with all of these stigmatizing aspects of accessing abortion care. We really want to make sure we can protect our callers and ensure they get the care that they need and that they get the funding that they need. And that's where we feel our work is best fit.
So you do or you don't believe in violence for violence?
At the Wild West Access Fund, we really do support ensuring that folks have access to the care that they need, and we do so by funding abortion care. And that's the work that we're going to continue to do, is making sure that the folks who need care in Nevada are able to access it and don't have to worry about any financial burdens that might prohibit them from doing so.
Now, if somebody believes in abortion rights, you obviously believe what you're doing is crucial. How would you sell it? How do you sell that to people who might think there are other more important issues in this country? Not the number of abortions has dropped precipitously over the last several years. It's now about 7 to 9 people per 100,000 women. It used to be almost 30 in the 1970s. If somebody's saying I have more important things to think about, how do you sell it to those people who aren't going to have an abortion? Maybe they're past birthing age, the age where they can actually have a child. How do you sell this idea?
I mean, I see this as the canary in the coal mine. The Supreme Court is testing the waters as to what they can do as to stripping away our fundamental human rights. This is only the beginning of what we expect to see. We saw in the leaked draft that they are going to come after things like gay marriage, even interracial marriage, contraception. We know that this is only the beginning. So even if you don't feel you have a vested stake in abortion access, you do have a vested stake in this fight. And I'd also offer that everybody loves somebody who's had an abortion. You just might not know that. So you definitely have a vested stake, whether or not you realize it.
We did get a tweet from a listener who says, many assume the loss of this right will only affect teens and young women. That is not true. Women in their 40s are sometimes surprised with a pregnancy at a stage of their life when a new baby is disruptive and may be detrimental to her health and safety. There is a wide assumption by far-right pro-life fanatics that women, girls, use abortion as a method of contraception, and that could be further from the truth. Please stop using the term late-term abortion. It is propaganda. And again, I'm talking to Caitlin Caruso. We're going to get more into this. We're bringing back Angelique Clark. She's the founder of lifedress.org and an anti-abortion advocate. Now, even if Roe v. Wade is reversed in the coming months, abortion will remain in Nevada, the right to have an abortion. Additionally, less than a year ago, an opinion poll showed 70% of Nevadans support a woman's constitutional right to an abortion. But state lawmakers do have the power to change the law. So many are focused on this fall's election when Republicans and conservatives are expected to take many more elected seats in state houses across the country. That would be welcome news to someone like Angelique Clark. She's an anti-abortion activist and founder of lifedress.org. Angelique, welcome back to State of Nevada.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
So, Angelique, briefly, why are you against abortion? Why do you feel so strongly about it?
I'm anti-abortion because abortion takes a human life and it harms women. And I just see that as a huge injustice to humanity and to what we know as a fundamental right to life.
Okay. Now, in the pursuit of understanding that perspective, I wonder, where does this passion come from? I don't know if you had a familial experience. Do you know someone who had an abortion that moved you? I mean, what's moved you to that position?
A lot of things have moved me to the position I'm in today. I've met a lot of people who have experienced a variety of complications from abortion, of regret from abortion, an inability to, heal after an abortion has occurred. I also just have spent a lot of time researching abortion and understanding what actually occurs in one. I think it's one of those things where when you it's seeing to believe. Like when people don't understand what actually occurs during an abortion procedure, it's hard to make the connection between taking out a clump of cells and actually ending the life of a human being. So once you make that connection and you see the true reality and the horrors of abortion, you can realize that we should all be against it.
Now, this past Sunday in Wisconsin, the office of an anti-abortion political action committee was vandalized, damaged by fire. Graffiti on the wall said, "If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either." So, as an anti-abortion advocate, how does that make you feel?
It's absolutely devastating to see the hate and the violence from the other side. It's not surprising, of course, because the other side, that is the entire purpose of their mission, is to, perpetrate violence to the preborn. So when we see it happen in these buildings, it's happening all across the United States right now. Pregnancy centers, some friends of mine in Texas, in Denton, Texas, just experienced the same thing at their clinic that offers women other options besides abortion. There was graffiti across their building. And so this is happening across the United States. We're seeing such incredible violence perpetrated against the pro-life message, and it's absolutely appalling, but also, like I said, not surprising.
Well, on the flip side, anti-abortionists have murdered 17 people, committed 42 bombings, and targeted 186 abortion clinics and providers with arson. Did you feel that was justified?
Absolutely not. There should be violence on neither side. So there's absolutely no reason to create violence towards another human being, whether they are a preborn human being in gestation or if they are a 40-year-old abortionist who's committing several crimes every single day by killing human beings. I don't think there should be violence to any human being whatsoever. Joining me now,
Patty from Las Vegas. Welcome to the program.
I was kind of getting a little upset when I was hearing some of the comments. But the one thing that I would agree with the last speaker is that I don't think violence against anyone is justified, but I think there's a little bit of a stretch to who's committing the violence on whom. But saying that, I'm a senior citizen in Las Vegas. I have a daughter, 2 granddaughters. None of us, well, the 2 granddaughters are young, but my daughter and I, neither of us have had an abortion. I do know someone who has. I fully support that right, and I don't think it should be taken away. It would have affected my family. It would have affected us poorly. But anyway, I don't know. It's so much to say. Anyway, I would like to encourage people to call the Wild West Fund and volunteer their time, their transportation, whatever they can offer. This organization is worthwhile. And if we lose this right as women, we're going to lose other rights. And for anyone to sit and say that this won't affect them in one way or another, they're just not being honest and truthful to themselves, because it's going to affect same-sex marriage. It's going to cause women, if they get their way, to not have access to contraception. It's just one little chunk at a time until women are living in the dark ages again. I just think it's a bad thing.
All right. Patty, thank you so much for your comments and your thoughts. We also got a call from Ann, who's not with us anymore, but she left a message saying she was upset with Caitlin Caruso that she didn't take a stand against the violence against anti-abortion advocates. And she quoted Michelle Obama saying, "When they go low, we go high." She considered donating, but will no longer do so. She believes they need to be against violence in all of its forms. Caitlin, do you want to respond to that?
Absolutely. I mean, at the Wild West Access Fund, we are against violence in all forms. We are committed to funding people who need access to care, who otherwise wouldn't be able to access it. That is our whole primary goal. It is all the work we do. All of our time and energy gets funneled into making sure that people can access the care they need. We often don't provide comment on many other things because we spend much of our time working with callers on the intake line and really just trying to get people to the care that they need. So I would say please reconsider. The work that we do is still incredibly worthwhile, and it is all that we do. It is all consuming. We are fighting for the right to abortion access in Nevada, and that will not change no matter what the courts say, and we need your support.
Joining me now, Anonymous from Las Vegas, or Nevada, it says here. Anonymous, welcome to the program.
Hi. Yes, I'm retired. My husband and I are both retired social workers for child welfare, and we just see more and more children coming into the system, more babies, and not the appropriate care for them. And I think if we have less abortions or no abortions, it's going to be flooded. And birth control is expensive. It's not, for the poor. It's not readily available, and it's just we're going to see more children coming into the system.
All right. Thank you so much for that comment. And Angelique Clark, there are now, I was reading more about it this morning, and I'm sure you probably read about it as well. The Mississippi governor is keeping open the idea that they could ban contraception in Mississippi. In Idaho and Arizona, there are talks of restrictions on access to contraception. There are talk in other states about restricting contraception for married couples. In your view, do you want the law to go that far?
In my view, I want abortions to be banned and human life to be protected. And so certain contraceptions do act as abortions. So any forms of contraception that act as abortions, I would not stand for. So I can see the last caller mentioned that there's an influx of children who need help and care. And I think the fact that we're saying that we don't want more children, that these children are a burden and a problem, I think we should focus on actually helping the children that already exist rather than saying the solution is to kill them.
Can you talk about a little bit more about what contraception you believe acts as an abortion?
Yeah, quite a few do. The IUDs, a lot of emergency contraception, and including the birth control pill. They function as abortifacients. They basically just cause early abortions and stop the life of the fetus that's already growing.